This is Expedition Texas, the podcast, presented by Crazy Water. Hello and welcome to Expedition Texas, the podcast. I'm your host, Bob Malden, and we are presented each and every week here, wherever you get your podcasts, by Crazy Water, the greatest thing to ever come out of the ground in Mineral Wells, Texas. You are also presented by the East Texas Oil Museum in Kilgore, Texas, part of Kilgore College out there. And, of course, we want you to go by and check out any chance you get Expedition Texas, Tales from the Road, the new book, wherever you get your books. If you want autographed copies, you can get those from expeditiontexas.tv and so much more. And folks, this is the second week that we're kind of doing a behind-the-scenes look at Expedition Texas here and talking to folks who have actually worked on the Expedition Texas crew for us. And I want to introduce to you someone now who has really been there kind of since the beginning. I think it might have been the second season when I talked this guy into going on the road with me and shooting Expedition Texas. His name is Jeff Miller. Jeff, how you doing, man?
Well, I'm doing good.
And Jeff works right down the hall every day up here. I see Jeff all the time. So I knew how Jeff was doing before I asked him that question.
I'm doing well.
So he's still doing well since I asked him 5 minutes ago.
Yep.
And sitting to his left is Jason Garrett, a frequent contributor to Expedition Texas. How's it going, Jason?
I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing fine. Well, so you guys both, between the two of these guys here, I don't want to say how many years. It is combined a ton of experience shooting video, and each of them has added so much to Expedition Texas. So first of all, thank you guys.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting us tag along with you.
Because you can't spend that much time on the road with somebody and not end up being friends. And so we've kind of all done that.
Correct.
And I want to start with Jeff just because, Jeff, you probably go back the farthest with Expedition Texas, but you and I really don't go back the farthest in knowing each other.
Right.
Because I actually met Jason first.
Yeah. I knew that.
Just a couple of years.
In 2001, I was doing radio, and I was doing a morning show, and the year before my son had been born, no, it was actually 2000, 99, 2000, something like that, and my son was born in 2000, and I thought, this radio business is not going to cut it. I need to make more money. So I decided to go to work for a local TV station that Jason was working at the time, doing camera and rolling tape and things like that. And we were doing night side, and in the fall, when those games and things would postpone the newscast, I was getting out of there at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then having to get up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to go do a morning show on radio. So that didn't last very long, but I made a friend out of the deal.
Yeah, hey, great friend. We've known each other for a couple of years.
Yeah, been a little bit now. And then Jeff I met later, not for my production, but Jeff was working on a show called Young Country with a man, the late Alex Price, and you were doing that show, and on a couple of occasions you and I crossed each other's paths through my radio promoting music and things like that in East Texas, and my own music as well. You guys, we crossed paths on your TV show a few times.
Had you host the show a couple of times, and we had a big time in Winsboro, Texas, I remember.
Yeah,
so,
did a guest hosting thing for you guys once upon a time. But and then as the Expedition Texas idea formed, there were times where I'd call on you guys a lot. But Jeff, I think you and I probably started out actually working on this show first before I finally called Jason and said, "Hey, would you mind taking a step backward and working with me on this show?" No, but Jeff, I'm trying to remember the first time we went on the road to shoot Expedition Texas, and this would be one of those episodes that's kind of lost, at least to current viewers, because it's not on YouTube or anywhere else anymore. It's not in reruns. Was it Alamo Village? That wasn't the first, though, was it?
I don't think Alamo Village was the first.
Was it perhaps Indianola?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe it was Indianola.
So there is and this was in my learning phase of doing Expedition Texas, okay, folks? I didn't vet a lot of the stories before I would go. Someone would suggest something, because almost immediately when the show got on the air, there were suggestions from viewers about places we could go, and I wouldn't vet those very carefully, and sometimes we would go, and one of the things, I guess I was expecting there to be more left at Indianola, but the whole story being that Indianola is a town that was literally wiped out by a hurricane.
That's right.
Wow.
It was completely wiped off the map.
Yeah, and so there are a few remnants and artifacts, and
And a cemetery.
yeah, the cemetery is still there. I believe we saw one cistern out in the wild, and then a museum where a lot of things that they found are preserved.
We know approximately where the basement or the foundation to the courthouse was.
Yes,
It's about 200 feet out under the water.
yes, that's right.
And we found it only by looking at Google Earth. And,
Yeah.
And then the cemetery, we found many graves with the same death date. And that was certainly heart-wrenching and that sort of thing. But it was wiped out twice. It had a hurricane the year before, or 10 years before, and then it was wiped out again by another hurricane. So
it helped with that episode with content that because we didn't have a lot left to see there, and we didn't realize it until we got there. It helped that Brian Burns, who is a Texas music artist who writes these songs about Texas history, had written and gave us permission to use a song about Indianola. So we used that with old photos, and that filled out like the last segment of the show. And I was so thankful for that, because it's a great song and it helped promote Brian and the great things he was doing. Yeah. But that was, I think, probably one of our first.
Yeah. I think that one, and then we followed it with Alamo Village, which was a pretty fascinating shoot as well.
Probably one of the ones that has the most supporting footage in evidence by the movies, like The Alamo that John Wayne produced and starred in, and then all the subsequent westerns that were shot on the same property.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about that particular location is that Happy Shahan, who actually is from Troop, Texas,
right,
has land out in White House. I lived on Shahan Ranch for a little while, and that's his family's land in White House. Roads were named after his kids. In fact, do you remember our guide for the Alamo Village episode was Tully Shahan, right?
Sure was.
Well, guess what road I lived on in Shahan Ranch?
Tully Drive. I know
Tully, 205 Tully Trail. I can say that address because I don't live there anymore.
Yeah, there you go.
205 Tully Trail was where I lived, and that's and it's Shahan Ranch. So, but. Yeah, it was so cool to go down there and meet Tully Shahan and hear the stories of his dad, who worked with John Wayne's production company to made an agreement that you come in here and build the facades you want. I'm going to build the rest, and we will make this into, once you leave, a tourist attraction. And it was for a long time.
Yeah, it was a very fascinating place. It looked just like the Alamo Village when you walk into it. I mean, it's like the Alamo sitting right there.
It's more like going to the Alamo than if you went to the actual Alamo.
Yeah, it really is.
Seriously.
Because the actual Alamo is in much better condition now, and it's been preserved well. And
there's a city around it.
Yes.
Yeah, back in the day, that wasn't the case.
Yes, there's a San Antonio all around the Alamo.
Downtown,
But the Alamo Village I found extremely fascinating. And then, of course, the museum that they had there with all the photographs of John Wayne all laid out and stuff. And so much history there that was basically reconstructed, preserved, and it was a pretty cool place. And it was way out in West Texas. It was under the sunshine.
We were in South Texas.
Yeah, that's right.
Remember Brackettville?
That's right, near Brackettville.
But it had that feeling of you were in, because San Antonio had that same type of terrain back in the day, and that's what they were trying to recreate. But it's very rocky.
We drove forever to get there, and right, it was rocky. It was sagebrush and tumbleweeds and everything else out there. Nothing higher than 3 or 4 feet. Just a few trees every now and then,
but it gave you this real sense because it wasn't just built like sets; it was built to last. So there was a movie that came out much later about, it was a version of the Alamo that starred Billy Bob Thornton that they filmed around Austin, Texas, and that set was built the way they build movie sets, which would be the bare minimum of materials, and it burned and had already been crumbling before it burned. This Alamo, which is probably still there, will never burn because it is solid rock,
and it's. And the beams that they used, and you remember climbing through the windows and looking through the beams were huge, and they were still pretty solid.
Yeah.
Beautiful place.
And it was like the entire encampment was built around it too, so it gave you the feel of what it would have been like to come into the compound in the day. And then nearby, of course, they built the Old West town, which was used in so many other movies, and different facades of these buildings. You would go in them and they were something else. I remember like there was like a bank building or something. We opened it up and it was actually where they stored all the old wagons and carriages from the westerns.
Right.
Such a cool place, and what a neat, especially for someone who loves old movies and like the theater behind it, to go see how they made so many cool movies. I mean, bar scenes. We went up to the big bar and all that, and went through the swinging doors, and it was all part of the experience. If you were a tourist in the day and wanted to come see where they filmed your favorite movies, you could do that, and you could walk through the same swinging doors as your Old West heroes did.
I remember us driving into the place, and we found the corral where they had corralled all the horses for the movie, and it was broken down and stuff like that, but it was just a cool kind of intro to that whole area.
Yeah.
And we couldn't see the village yet, but we found the corral where the horses were kept and corralled and stuff. It was like kind of that hint of something to come.
Well, so I want to get to Jason here in just a second, but I have to tell you also one of my best memories, and probably because we either did a video for it or went live on Facebook, and we were headed to Shamrock, or where were we heading, where we left Tyler in T-shirts, and we didn't know that the temperature outside had changed until we literally popped out of the truck and our snot started freezing because it was so cold.
It was Shamrock.
Was it Shamrock?
We were going to Shamrock, and we got out of the truck to get gas or something, and it was cold and wet.
And we're like, what happened? What's going on?
We had passed through a cold front big time.
And there was like a little bit of drizzle, but there were like icicles hanging off of the back of the car, and
it was chilly.
We missed the memo on that, and I guess the weather app wasn't a part of our mobile devices.
We didn't have that in our arsenal.
Time. Yeah, not yet. So, Jason, do you remember the first time you came and did Expedition Texas? I know we've done a lot of things. What was probably it doesn't have to be the first, but the first one you remember that you came along to shoot?
I would say, gosh.
And more recently, we've done like the 10th anniversary season and things like that, where we've gone and visited.
I would say probably when we went to Amarillo and Abilene, we went up there to the old train house up there.
Okay. All right. So what that would have been is the Santa Fe Depot.
Yes.
In Amarillo. So you were with us on that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we do so many of these, I kind of forget what combination of guys. And last week we had Nick Moy and Sean Block on with me, and they were reminding me of things that we had done that I had forgotten. No, that was you guys, But yeah, so the Santa Fe Depot in Amarillo, which of course was it not only was this large depot operated by the Santa Fe Railroad, but it was also one of the original Harvey House hotels on top, with the Harvey girls, which would take you to your room and all that, and wait on you at the restaurant and all that, and we actually went and saw that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty neat to see. I'd never knew that there would be like a hotel on top of a train depot like that. But then I guess hey, makes perfect sense. You come in for your stop there, you got the hotel.
You think about the cattle industry in Amarillo and how big of a business it was, and some of the rooms in that. I mean, that was a very opulent, like very nice depot. It was more than just a depot. There were meeting rooms. There were dressing rooms. There were like these big restaurant areas, and deals were made there. And these cattlemen, when they were going to make their deals, they needed a place to stay along their route and their travels. Yeah,
you had the restaurant on one end, and on the other end, you had the big old walk-through scale, or whatever, to where they'd, I guess, weigh the cow, or whatever.
They would weigh. That was actually where they were weighing luggage. There. Yeah, that's where they weighed the luggage for the trip. But there was so much that was done out of Amarillo, and we learned so much at that Santa Fe Depot. But we also had the chance to stay in a really cool historic hotel downtown.
That was lovely.
Yeah,
That was beautiful.
That had been restored. We got a chance to see the Herring Hotel again, which was our neighbor down there where we were staying. The Herring is still not open for business yet, but in the works of being restored, we hear. But yeah, downtown Amarillo and the work that they're doing there, and of course Beth Duke. We talked about her because on a previous trip, I also had taken Nick and Sean there, and we did some stories there. We did the story on the Herring Hotel in Amarillo. So one of the ones that kind of sticks out to me with you here lately is that occasionally, and we've never actually done one of these with Jeff. I've done 2 down through the years, but in the 10th anniversary season of the show, I had you and Matt Reagan, and y'all were on the road, and this episode still comes up in reruns every now and then. It was the behind-the-scenes episode.
Yeah.
And it caused you to buy a new piece of luggage.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah. Everywhere we'd go, you would always, hey, I'm going to get a shot of you and Matt walking across the sidewalk, so we could film the hotel and all that. Well, at the time, I borrowed my wife's purple suitcase. Here it is. You see 3 big guys walking in, and then you see one rolling a purple suitcase. I'm like, what in the world? A purple suitcase? So, right after that, I got home. I told my wife, I said, look, no more purple suitcase. I got to go buy me a big black one, where I could, look tough,
Oh, yeah. You had to keep that image going there.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. It's like, man, I can't do this no more.
I remember you telling me about that when you had your suitcase. I think I even commented on your suitcase, and you said, why did you get a new one? Because of that behind-the-scenes episode. Everybody saw me rolling around the purple one.
Yeah, I was like, I took a little flack for that, I still get ribbed every once in a while.
Come on. This is 2024, folks.
Yeah, but it's just that purple suitcase is probably not going to see the road.
It is, but it is forever ingrained in that episode. And another thing that's forever ingrained in that episode is this was one of those where we were going to be on the road long enough, and there were going to be enough of us in the vehicle that I thought it was a good idea to bring the trailer. And we do have a trailer that we use for production. It's not a very big trailer, but it's a trailer. Everything stays nice and enclosed, and we can kind of keep it organized in there. But the front half of the trailer was unavailable for video equipment. Why was that, Jason?
Well, I think it was the night before. Matt, myself, and my wife, we took a little detour over to Sam's.
Yeah?
Yeah, and it was a few $100s later. We had a small little spot in the back of the trailer for a couple of cameras to put.
But other than that, these guys
was full of
bought
food, snacks,
not just like your boxes like you would get at the local grocery store. They had like the cases. Like if you were you could have opened a concession stand with what they had and served the crowd at a football game.
Well, they were going to be on the road a while.
Yeah,
I said, did you guys think I wasn't going to feed you or something?
We were kind of worried about that a little bit. We were thinking, this long trip, we might have to crawl through the back window, open up the door, grab something, and then crawl back out, crawl through the window.
Yeah. And, they were very concerned about that, I think, because that truck, and then I don't think you guys maybe got 2 things.
I was fixing to say,
I
think we got maybe a couple of drinks of water, maybe a bag of chips or something.
There were boxes, and we're talking boxes, of goodies that were still closed when we pulled back into Tyler, Texas after a week.
Wow. Yep. It was,
And so Matt Reagan was shooting with you. Matt's kids ended up with a plethora of goodies.
Yes.
Good for them.
You're welcome for the sugar.
Yes. Right. So yeah, that you guys were prepared though, just in case I did decide there will be no food stops along the way. They were ready.
Or, if we had to, like you said, if we had to open up a concession stand, if we had to make a couple dollars, for gas or something, never know.
Sell food to buy food.
Now you're giving me an idea.
Hey.
We can start bringing along and pop a little stand out the side of the trailer there, and if we need some gas to get on down the road. There have been times where things did not go as planned.
Yeah.
Jeff, we had one of those.
Yeah. On the way to Laredo.
Yep. Laredo. Did y'all know that there is a difference between Laredo and Nuevo Laredo?
Yes.
There is. But some apps, which shall remain nameless, do not understand the difference between those two. And if you tell it you want a hotel in Laredo, Texas, you don't always get to stay on the Texas side, which you would think, if you're trying to say you want to be in Texas, that you would get to stay in the country that you have chosen.
But you booked a very nice hotel.
Oh, yeah. It was fabulous. For $40 a room or something like that.
Dynamite price.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Like a resort-style hotel. And I was so excited. I told Jeff, I'm like, man, we hit the jackpot in Laredo. It is amazing. I'm telling him like all the amenities and like there's valet parking. I mean, we're in good shape here.
It was a high class hotel.
And I'm sitting there looking at this thinking, man, I love this app. It's amazing. It is, which I'm not saying it. Maybe they'd be a sponsor someday. But anyway, I'm looking and I'm thinking, man, we have hit the jackpot. I don't think I want to leave. I don't want to go to the next town. Let's just stay here. And so, anyway, then I look at the phone number, and there's an extra digit. And I'm like, wait a minute. Hold on. I don't think I can dial this. And then I'm like, oh, no. And then I got to looking, and you can tell it you want to stay in Laredo, Texas, but Nuevo Laredo is immediately across the river in Mexico. And
it doesn't see that.
Yeah, it doesn't realize that. It's like it searches a region surrounding the zip code you put in. It doesn't take into account the international border.
Wow.
That's right there too. And so I didn't have a passport at the time. And so we were booked to stay in Mexico. And I'm like, we're not doing that. Okay. And so I called and I did raise some cane. Jeff was driving at the time, so I could handle this very scary situation. Yes. And yeah, because I was like double clutching, you know.
Yeah.
And so we did get that situation fixed. And our hotel for the same dollars on the U.S. side of Laredo was nowhere near as nice.
No.
So I was very disappointed because there was no pool, there was no valet parking, no resort style, no nothing, no cabana, no bar.
Did you have toilet paper?
I think maybe
a sheet.
There was, yeah. It was one of those hotels where you go in and you get whatever the guy before you didn't use.
Oh.
Yeah, but there was some.
Oh, okay.
But that was a fun shoot. Laredo held a lot of interesting little treasures for us.
Still hasn't aired yet. Did you know that?
Really?
I keep moving it to the next season, to the next season, to the next season.
You need to
and
put that
it has never aired. And you know why? And this is I recently discovered this too. I mean, like this year discovered this. The Laredo episode that we went through all that trouble to actually get to and shoot had great guides. We had multiple guides, took us through different areas of the town, showing us some old buildings and stuff. And the multiple guides that spent all that time with us, I was so excited because it was actually a pretty decent story. Chris Moore actually wrote the episode for us, and I went to use the footage to make the episode. There was no audio on it, no sound at all. Well, I tried converting the footage. I tried all this different stuff, and there was no audio.
You need to hire a different cameraman.
Well, that was you.
I know.
But anyway, and I was baffled because he was listening the whole time.
Yeah.
That he was shooting this. Right. So, because I'm pretty adamant about be sure you listen, and so he was listening the whole time we were shooting this. I don't know where the audio went. And so anyway, apparently with all this digital video stuff, I guess maybe we're using a new camera at the time. Was that when we had that one new camera that
probably
everything operated a little bit different? I kept it for maybe 2 months and then I sold it. But no, I don't think it was that. I don't know what happened. But anyway, for some reason, the audio side of those video files didn't read. And no matter what I played them back on, you could hear no audio. And then one day, I had put them up on Dropbox just as a place to hold them. And one day I decided that I'm going to I'm gonna just clear that out and get them off there because they're taking up space, wasting time. I'm never gonna show it anyway, right? So I'm like, let's just look and see if there's any way to salvage this. So I hit play on the file that's in Dropbox. Well, apparently the player in Dropbox can read the codec that is in the video file.
Wow.
And guess what? The audio is there.
Wow.
And I was like, great. So, we've sat on this footage now for all this time. And, I look different. Of course, that changes every couple of years anyway. But and I'm thinking, well, should we use this? And so it's been moved, however long ago that was, to the next season, to the next season, to the next season, until now it's in the rotation for this season, but it's not on the schedule because I don't know yet if I can even remember what the story was. But it's still there, and we could potentially.
I'm sure you can make something out of it.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, we could show this of us talking about it and say, this is why you haven't seen it until now.
There you go.
Yep.
And this is why I shaved for one episode this season and had no beard. But yeah, that's what happened.
Laredo
with
was
that.
a fun shoot, though.
It was a fun
we
shoot.
Had gigantic trees that down by the river, that were just massively old and huge trees. And then there was a guy.
I was wondering if you were going to mention the guy.
The guy that was a little bit weird. He came after us.
No reflection on Laredo, Texas. at
No,
all, by the way.
Laredo's a wonderful town,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they have the people there are fabulous. But there's
This
this
guy
one
wasn't.
guy.
He
There's
didn't
this
like
one
us.
guy who kept getting in front of the car, and
On purpose?
wouldn't let us. Yeah, he kept. We'd back up. He'd run with us, and then we finally got away from him, and we're down by the river shooting, and here he is showing up, checking
Yeah.
us out.
Yeah, I don't
And-
know what was going on with that.
I think he was mentally
Oh,
disabled or something. But
Yeah.
anyway, he was a fascinating character, and
we did get away from him though.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, this is weird. We
But-
need to go.
but
We need to
there
go
was
somewhere
this-
he won't catch us on foot.
Yeah,
'Cause
right.
he did.
But
That's wild.
the one part that I really thoroughly enjoyed about Laredo was going into the old city, where they talked about the alcalde who had been buried down by the cathedral, and that they had unearthed his grave and found gold tassels on his jacket. And they figured out he was the president of Laredo, the nation, that only stayed in existence for a couple of months before Mexico decided that will not exist as a nation, and then they surrendered it, and he he died and was buried there. And
You remember a lot more about that than I do.
Well, I remember the lady that was talking about, the museum curator, was talking about how when they were doing some street work or something, they found his grave and they opened it up and they found his jacket had gold tassels on it, which meant that he was somebody of importance. And they finally figured out he was the guy who was president of Laredo,
No.
the country.
Maybe I need to give you that episode. to
Yeah,
edit.
I'll do it.
I was like, Jeff, you remember way more of this than I do. You
Well,
just tell me
yeah.
what to say, and I'll do it.
I'll do it. But
Okay.
I thought it was a beautiful
Yeah.
town.
Yeah, it was. It was. And, we, a lot of the places that Jason went with us, when Matt and Jason went with us on that 10th anniversary season, we were going back to places where we had visited in the first season of Expedition Texas, which you can actually get that first season as a DVD set on our website as a DVD. That's the only way it's available right now. But we went back to places that we visited in that first season, and it was fascinating because some of those places are barely there anymore. We went to the old blacksmith shop at Stone Point. It was one of the first stops in near Canton, Texas.
Yeah.
And that blacksmith shop, not there anymore. The only thing that was still there, really, that was the same was there were buzzards, a new family of buzzards in the same nest where we saw them 10 years ago.
I didn't see the ones 10 years ago, but hey, if y'all say they were there, then I guess
Yeah,
the
they
family
were.
just stayed there, and it was like,
Yeah.
you
New
know.
generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. They kept them coming. You remember that 10th anniversary trip? Anything stood out to you from that travel?
Well, also, whenever we was down in Galveston, we did get to hang out with Britney Spears' mom.
Yes, that was unexpected.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad Jeff wasn't there. They would have probably ended up coming back together.
Yeah, they might have.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
She was. So we went to Galveston and toured the old Falstaff plant again, which. If you do watch the video of this, which we put the video of the podcast on YouTube for you to actually see us all sitting here talking, the set is decorated with mementos and things like that from around our travels around Texas. And there are some sesquicentennial Falstaff cans that came out of that plant. That my grandfather had in his collection. So they're up there, and they still have beer in them. I don't imagine it's very good anymore. It's from 1976, but those cans are here, and So among some of our souvenirs here, but we went and visited the Falstaff plant, and a guy named Jerome Karam was in the process of turning it into a fantastic hotel. He had already changed the area where they fermented all the beer into an indoor storage facility, which was amazing and air conditioned and state of the art. But when we were there, we met up with a lady named Mary, who was the designer, who was in charge of all the look of the interiors and things like that, the layout, the furnishings, and all that. And her friend was there with her. And Mary was from, I believe, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, somewhere in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And her friend was there, and we met her and said hi, Lynn. We didn't think anything about that. A very nice lady, and we went on. But then there were like these little Easter eggs, and Matt picked up on a lot of them because Matt is very culturally aware. And
he is.
He picked up on a lot of the little clues, and he shared them with you before he did me. Tell me how y'all came to the realization that we were in the presence of Britney Spears' mom, Lynn.
Well, we were walking through there, and I'm sitting there thinking in my head, Lynn, she said her last name. I was like, Lynn, surely she didn't say, Spears, And I'm going, but she looks. If you could picture Britney Spears older, okay, and dark hair,
yeah.
And I'm like, man, they kind of, and they're from the same area, and so anyhow, you were kind of in a pause point, with my camera. So I'm sitting there and I Google, Britney Spears' mom. And I'm sitting there looking. And I go.
So you were figuring it out first.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there, had my phone, looking at her. So I even did a side-by-side hold up,
Yeah.
Hopefully, I don't think she saw.
Yeah.
And I go, my gosh. And then I called Matt over there. And I said, Matt, that's Britney Spears' mom.
Yeah.
And so he goes, what? And so I was sitting there showing him, we were talking about it. And, after kind of touring more of the building, and we went upstairs to where the top,
the tasting room,
the tasting room, which is a beautiful little spot.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were sitting there. We get up there, and guess what's playing? Britney Spears over the speaker.
Yeah.
And she goes, that's very coincidental. And then I just looked at each other. Like,
yep. Yeah. That was the confirmation you needed, right?
Exactly. Yeah. We're like,
So before it was all over, she had been with us the whole time.
The whole time.
And the whole time, as anytime that somebody joins us on a tour of a place, and this was like an active construction site too, and lots of safety precautions because they were taking this building that was about to fall down 10 years ago and bringing it back, putting in all new bones. I mean, all the steel and everything. They were completely redoing this thing. Had to realign different floors because things had been built on later. So we're in like this active construction zone. Hard hats required in a lot of the places. And we're riding a service elevator on the outside of the building, like stuck to the side of the building going up. It was a construction elevator. And the whole time, I keep telling this group of people that's following us around, including Lynn, to stay behind the cameras. And then I'll tell the cameras where they're going to be because I kind of direct from in front of the camera, as you know. And I'm telling them, okay, you guys are going to be here, you're going to be here, and you people stay there. And that was how we were doing, kind of herding them around. And I was oblivious until we're done. And we're heading to put the stuff up, and Jason comes catching up to me because I was kind of ready to go. And he goes, hey, that was Britney Spears' mom. I said, who? What? Because that's not where you picture seeing
No.
Britney Spears, you don't expect you're going to be sitting there visiting with, this is not the place you normally meet someone like that.
Yeah, especially a hard hat area.
Yeah.
Where it's dust and dirt. And,
Yeah, it was dirty, yeah.
all that kind of stuff, and sweaty and hot. I mean, the only air conditioned spot was just the storage area,
Yeah.
which was like great for like the 10 minutes that we were in there.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then after that, it's like, the Galveston humidity.
The humidity and then once it was kind of realized, and it's like, see if she'll take a picture. So she did, and she was kind to do that. And so we have photos of all of us with her down there, and of course Jerome and Mary and everybody that we had a chance to meet on that particular trip. That was a highlight of that one.
Yeah,
it's a highlight to go back anytime to see, if the places that we've visited survive. Do you have a favorite, Jeff, expedition?
I have two favorites. One is when we went to the Branch Davidian outpost.
That's one of mine too.
That was to me, that one had the most meaning to it. Visiting with Charles Pace and getting the inside scoop on David Koresh and all the things that surrounded the fire and everything that happened there, and it was fascinating just to walk the grounds and to know that had occurred there, and to memorialize all the people that had died there, and picking up the shells, walking down the road with Alex. And the second one was the Women's Circle Home. That was absolutely one of my favorite, two of my favorite episodes, since that was a two-parter. And I thought that place, for one thing, it was magnificent, so huge and so imposing, and sitting on top of that hill without any air conditioning, and you throw open the windows and it's pleasant in the place, and it's real sweet. And just knowing the purpose for which that was built, and all the women that benefited from the place, it was really a very important
that's
episode.
the Woodman Circle Home in Sherman, which we had. That was one of the number one places.
Yeah.
Up until we finally went there, that people told us, you need to go do this story.
I'm so glad we did.
Yeah, because it's not there anymore.
It's gone, and I'm so glad we went and visited that, and I just felt like it had real significance to it.
It does, and so many of these places actually had really. In fact, like this season of the show, in the intro is we have a new shot of the Mary Allen College in Crockett, which was built for the young African American women who were just coming out of slavery. It was completed in 1868, so and it gave a chance for them to have higher education and to build careers and do things like that, and go out into the workforce and make careers for themselves. And so those that you see these kind of places that have impact outside of just their own little area. Do you have a favorite out of all the places we went? Not just that 10th anniversary season. Anything that probably is something you really enjoyed going to check out while we were on the road, Jason?
I've been thinking about it, and I really think one of them that's probably one of the neatest is the missile silo.
That was you on that one, right?
Yeah.
So that was just you?
Yeah, it was just that Amarillo trip.
Yeah, that one's in the book.
And oh, really?
Yep.
Well, got another plug for the book there.
And
that was probably one of the neatest. Deep down, beneath into the soul. And you sit there and think, and we were out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And you sit there and think, this right here was built for in case the major war happens.
Yeah.
And it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And also, I was sitting there and I can't remember what streaming service it was, but there was a movie or a show that has a missile silo just like that.
Yeah.
And I sat there, when we went, it was pretty kind of bare bones.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I saw it on the movie and everything, or the TV, it was just like, wow, so that's, I kind of imagined with what we saw and go, so that was pretty, accurate of everything.
Yeah.
And sit there and go, wow, and then sit there, see all the men and women down there, pushing the buttons on the computers and, all that. And,
Yeah,
so.
and that was Lawn, Texas, which is near Abilene. We hit that on the way back from Amarillo, or on the way to, I don't remember where it was in the trip, but and that was and we're talking 18 stories into the ground, and ready to launch from that little spot outside of Abilene, Texas, and hit a target within 1,500 feet of its intended target. That many miles away, like on the other side of the world. I mean, it's insane. And that was all done with 1960s technology.
Yep.
In fact, they lined everything up with the North Star through a pipe that went down at an exact angle into the ground, into the control room, so that they could line everything up, and they triangulated just from that.
It's just wild.
Isn't it crazy
that's still standing? I mean, probably could be used if they had to today.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Drain all the water out of it.
Yeah, have to get his little dinghy out of the middle so that it's not
exactly.
floating. He can't go float around and think. But yeah, that was what a cool place. The waters of Mineral Wells, Texas, have been making folks feel good inside and out since 1881. Maybe it's because of the flavor, or maybe they just might have some sort of story associated with a crazy woman who drank from the well and suddenly wasn't so crazy anymore. Either way, you'd be crazy not to drink it. It's Mineral Wells, the pride of Mineral Wells, the legendary crazy water.
Do you love history? Do you ever wonder about the way things were almost 100 years ago in East Texas? Visit the Kilgore College East Texas Oil Museum to learn about the men and women who lived during the East Texas oil boom of the 1930s. Step back in time and visit Boomtown, USA, the life-size diorama of a town booming in oil. Step inside the general store and visit the shopkeeper. Head to the theater to watch the Great Oil Boom movie. And no visit would be complete without taking a quick journey on the elevator ride to the center of the earth to learn about all of the geology of the East Texas oil field. The East Texas Oil Museum is now open Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. with last entry at 4 p.m. For more information, visit kilgore.edu/oil museum or find us on all the socials.
And we're back here on the Expedition Texas podcast. A little info there on the East Texas Oil Museum in Kilgore, Texas. Thanks, Olivia Moore, for that and for helping support Expedition Texas, the podcast. Before that, we were talking about Mineral Wells and all the fun that's happening there. Jeff, we've had a lot of trips out to Mineral Wells, haven't we?
I love Mineral Wells. That's, in fact, I went out there and found the Mineral Wells. They're just right a block and a half away from
they're right there,
water place.
Right there in the town. Yeah,
found there's 11 of them, and but Mineral Wells is a fascinating town. It is friendly, it's beautiful, and the people are nice. And I would consider moving there if I felt like I could. But
they would be happy to have you out there.
Yeah, I know they would.
You're a nice guy.
Well, but they're nicer. They are very nice people. But Mineral Wells has such a fascinating history. And when you talk to the people in the know about the crazy water and how the mineral water brought about a lot of restoration of people and things like that, you kind of think, well, maybe there's something to this. And so, of course, I'm like you. I became a real fan of crazy water, and I drink it all the time. And
well, as you know, they're a sponsor of the title sponsor of this podcast, and what they did is they figured out a way to share the water there with the rest of the world. And it's a cool thing because you can go into the store. Almost all the grocery stores in Texas now carry this. And you can go into the store and these bottles have numbers on them and they're color coded. I love number 4, which has the highest mineral content.
I like number 3, which is second highest.
Yeah, and then Jason is having some good old-fashioned number 2 over there.
Number 2.
Yeah, which is is probably the closest thing you're going to get to like their competitor spring water. But like if you really want to get some nutrients and some minerals,
that stuff
this,
right there.
This is where you go.
Yeah.
And I always make sure that I have some whenever we shoot here.
Yeah, it's good stuff, and it'll cure what ails you.
Well, back in the day, people would come and actually bathe in it, and they would get these treatments with it and all that. Well, now Crazy Water, the company, now has a Crazy Water bathhouse where you can once again have the same types of treatments they had back then. You can bathe in it. You can then get a massage. Like the same experience you would have had back in the day when everyone would come from all over the place and stay at the Baker Hotel and go to the spa there. You can now have that experience right there on the grounds at the Famous Water Company.
And that's really a good example of reclaiming lost history, which is the premise of our show, is that the hotels had to shut down for a while, and just different things, made it not a place. And then all of a sudden, everyone's become health conscious again, and they have just rediscovered the mineral water and mineral wells, and it's natural and it's good, and it has a fascinating history about it.
Yeah, and Mineral Wells as a community, as a town, has been a partner on the show in a lot of different ways in the past. We've done presentations at their chamber banquets. They sponsored a season of the show. We've done our sister show, Main Street Reborn, there, and so we're there a lot, and we kind of feel like we're part of the community.
It's our second home.
Yeah, like a second home, because we get to go there so much, and there's so much that with so many times we've had a chance to tell different aspects of their story. I mean, we did an expedition there on the Nazarene Hospital. We've had these chances to, and it just feels like we know Mineral Wells now. Yeah. And there's so many things like the Crazy Water Hotel, which had the first time we went there had a bar where they didn't serve alcohol back in the day. It was where they served their water. And you could belly up to the bar and get you some good, nice, cold Crazy Water straight out of the ground. And it's back. As they restored the Crazy Water Hotel, they restored that. Wow. And there's some really cool shopping in that Crazy Water Pavilion, which is there in the Crazy Water Hotel, which is restored and opened up. And across the street, the Baker Hotel, which we toured in 2013, is making a comeback now. And by, I believe they said 2027, you can book a room and a spa experience and a meal at the Baker Hotel in Mineral Wells, Texas. Isn't that crazy to think? I mean, it's been abandoned for decades and decades and decades.
Yeah. That's crazy.
The better part of a century it sat with people thinking, what is this massive building?
It is a huge hotel.
Yeah.
It's the biggest building in that part of the state. I mean, it's just massive.
Well, guys, I'm looking forward to more adventures on the road with you guys. I can't wait to hit the road again. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to pull out of here early in the morning with some array of friends with me, and we take off on the road and go tell these stories.
Yeah,
it's always fun.
I think we need to do it again really soon.
It's the best thing. Yeah.
Yes.
There's more lost history out there, and we're going to, in some form or fashion, we're all going to find it, right?
That's right.
Yes, we are.
All right, so we are going to take off for another week here. We'll be back next week. Next week, we're going to be visiting with the folks from Henderson, Texas, and learn a lot of history about that great town. So be sure that you tune in next time here to Expedition Texas, the podcast. I want to thank Jeff Miller and Jason Garrett for being my guests here today on Expedition Texas, the podcast. So for those guys, I'm Bob Malden. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.